everyone, and thank you for joining us this morning. It has been a fast and furious 2021. I am Ty Bledsoe, Plano Chamber Public Policy Chair, and yes, today we welcome our great Plano City Manager, Mr. Mark Israelson, Karen Rhodes Whitley, Director of Budget and Research, Daniel Prendergrass, Assistant Director of Public Works, Caleb Thornhill, Director of Engineering, Ron Smith, Director of Parks and Recreation, and Paul Kunze, Senior Facilities Construction Coordinator. We'd also like to acknowledge our city officials that are joining us this morning. Please join me in welcoming City Councilmember Rick Grady, City Councilmember Mary Maria Tu, City Councilmember Shelby Williams, City Councilmember Lily Bow, and definitely City Manager Mark Israelson, Deputy City Manager Shelley Seimer. And special thank you to our Board of Directors for the Plano Chamber in attendance today. And those Board of Director members includes Ms. Lisa Smith, Misty Hoyt, Crystal Clayton, and yes, we are now ready to kick the tires and light the fires.
Well, good morning, Ty. Thank you so much for that introduction for the City of Plano. We are very happy to be here this morning. As most of y'all are aware, voting started today for the 2021 Bond Referendum, and we have a team here this morning to help go over the projects in a little bit more detail about what those projects are and what it means to the City of Plano. As you all are aware, election goes from now until May 1st. And with that, I will turn it over to our Director of Budget and Research, Karen Rhodes Whitley.
Good morning, everybody. I'm going to kick off the presentation this morning and talk about a little bit of the background concerning the bond referendum. The City of Plano is on a 4-year cycle for our bond authority. The city is projected over this next year to exhaust what we still have from the 2013, 2017, and we had a very small bond referendum back in 2019 to take out some very big, large projects out of our capital maintenance fund and fund them with 20-year debt. Bonds are issued for capital assets, for roads, facilities, parks and rec projects with an expected life of at least 20 years or more. This bond referendum grants the city the authority to go issue the debt in order to build the projects. The city council on a yearly basis is the one that authorizes what projects will be built in each of the years. So this is just for the authority. The actual authorization occurs on a yearly basis. This year, we had the pleasure to work with a citizen advisory committee. They were called the BRCAC. They did a wonderful job. It was 8 nominated citizens. They were nominated by each of the council members and the mayor. Their assignment was to review, prioritize, and recommend and make comments on all the bond referendum projects and the propositions. The city council did use their matrices. They had priority matrices for each area, streets, parks and rec, and facilities. They ranked them all, and that is what the city council went by when they selected the different projects we're going to go through here today. The 2021 bond referendum totals $363.9 million. The street Proposition A is by far the largest. It makes up 67% of the whole bond referendum. It is for street improvements at $231 million. Proposition B is for park improvements at $81.9 million. Proposition C is rec center improvements, and that's actually the Tom Mullenbeck Center at $15.9. Proposition D is for public safety facility and improvements at $27.1 million. Proposition E is for municipal facility improvements, $5.5 million, and Proposition F is for our libraries at $2.5 million. We're about to go into some more details regarding each one of those projects. We did want to mention for the past 20 years, the city has been very successful with their bond referendums. Out of the past 20 years, we have gone through, since 2001, we've offered up 36 propositions. Only 2 have not passed in all that time. Back in 2017 was the Collinwood House, and it narrowly got defeated. And then in 2001, we went back and asked for more funding for a performing arts center to go in as a joint venture with Frisco and Allen and McKinney, and that did not pass. This is our current outstanding authority that we are issuing. In fact, we're on bond rating calls tomorrow. This will wind up the 2013, 17, and 19 authority. And I wanted to mention something. The City of Plano is always very conservative when we're coming up with any kind of tax rate, potential tax rate impact. We're very conservative. You'll see in the next to last column on this, these were the projected tax rate changes that we said we possibly could have after issuing the debt in our debt tax rate. You will see, though, over the last 20 years, we've only ever had to go up one time, and that was back in 2009. That was during the great economic recession. Our property values had seriously plummeted because of the recession, and we were able to go up 1 penny on the debt tax rate at that time, and that's the only time after the last 20 years. What we have going now, as far as our financial impact, if all of them were to pass at the end of the 4 years, the tax rate change, the projected or potential tax rate change would be 2.13 cents, or for the average homeowner, that would be $67.71. There's all kinds of variables that go into this tax rate impact, like the interest rates at the time, what your average home value is going to do, the existing property values, are we going to have new growth coming online from construction? Anyway, all kinds of numbers go into this. This in no way says we're going to go up. It's just we want to provide what a maximum tax rate impact could possibly be if all of them passed. We always have operation costs. Anytime you build a new project, you usually have increases in operating costs. The total for our bond referendum this time is $1.8 million. Street improvements is the largest, $1.3 million. Parks and recreations, $281,000, and public safety facilities is $237,000. All these are assumed to be done within our general fund operating budget and do not have any kind of tax rate on them. Okay, at this time, I will let Dan take over, and he will talk about the streets.
Thank you, Karen. My name is Dan Prendergast. I'm the Assistant Director of Public Works, and with me on this call is Caleb Thornhill, the Director of Engineering, and we're going to present the Proposition A street improvement projects. The slide you see here are the 8 projects that make up the $231 million Proposition A. I want to point out projects 1 and 2, arterial concrete street reconstruction and overlay, and residential street and alley repair. That's $170 million of the $231 million Prop A. Those projects are geared towards rehabilitation and extending the life of our pavement systems well beyond their 30-year lifespan, and I'll talk more about that here in some slides. Next slide, please. Let's go through some background information first. This is a slide showing the City of Plano street network color-coded by age. The streets that you see in red here were built over 50 years ago, and they shade from red to orange to yellow and to green, with the green streets being built in the last 8 to 12 years. Overall, about half of our streets were built over 30 years ago, which is the end of their original design life. Almost all of them are concrete. We have approximately 1,200 lane miles of major divided streets, and the cost to replace those today would be about $1.8 billion. And we have about 1,500 lane miles of two-lane residential streets, and the cost to replace those today would be about $2 billion. So altogether, you're looking at about $3.8 billion worth of roadway infrastructure if we were to replace it today. If you look at just the streets that are over 30 years old, you'd be looking at about $2 billion. But this proposition is only $231 million, and that's to extend the life of that pavement system well beyond that 30-year design life. Next slide, please. And that's what this slide here is intended to show. It's a little busy. I'll walk you through it. On the left side, or the y-axis, you have street condition that goes from excellent at the top all the way down to failed at the bottom. On the bottom, or the x-axis, you have time. And there's a black curve in the middle that shows how the condition of a street changes over time, and it's not linear. So you see in the beginning, at the top left, when the street's brand new, it's in great condition, and it stays that way for a long time without doing much to it. And that's the situation that Plano was in 10 to 15 years ago. However, there's a tipping point kind of around that red dot where you see the street condition starts to degrade very quickly. And if we don't provide either preventative maintenance in green there or a rehab project in orange, the street will go all the way down to failed. And at that point in time, the only cost-effective method is to rebuild the entire road. However, that's 5 times more costly than doing a major rehab project that you see in orange there. We also score our streets. The last one was done in 2016, and we're doing one right now. When we scored the streets in 2016, only about 10% scored below a D. So our streets don't necessitate being replaced right now. We're really focusing on maintenance, which is why I talked about the $170 million of the 231 total being towards extending our pavement systems. Next slide, please. This is a summary of the first slide that you saw, but we also added some information here. On the third column, you see cost. That's a unit cost. And then we also added quantity on the fifth column. So, for instance, on project number 1, arterial concrete street reconstruction and overlay, for $100 million, that'll get you 50 miles of 6-lane divided thoroughfares that are rehab. Project 2, residential street alley repair, $70 million gets you 14 zones, and I'll talk more about what those are here in a couple of slides. Residential and collector street reconstruction, $24 million gets you 12 miles. Screening walls, $12 million gets you 12,000 feet. Sidewalks, $5 million is going to do 25 miles. Intersection improvements, $4 million will do 4 intersection expansions. Alley reconstruction, $4 million will do 4 miles of alleys. And then traffic improvements are project-specific things like computer upgrades, software upgrades, and different things that help the traffic signals work better. And Caleb will talk more about that too in a few slides. The first project on Proposition A is arterial street reconstruction and overlay. It's $100 million. What this project is, I don't know if you've been on Independence Parkway between 15th Street and Parker Road. We do concrete repairs first, and we put an asphalt overlay down in 2017. That was a test section to see if the overlay would be accepted by the public and also perform well and help protect the concrete below. It's done very well. We've gotten a lot of good feedback. So this project is going to expand that type of project through 50 miles of our 200-mile 6-lane divided network. It improves ride quality, safety, and the aesthetics as well. Next slide, please. Next project is a residential street and alley repair. We do our residential sweeps through zones, and the map you see there in the middle shows our residential zones. They're labeled like D6 and F6. They're usually about 1 square mile that are bounded by major streets. And this map here is color-coded by the last time that we rehabbed the zone. So the areas that you see in blue, we have not yet rehabbed, and those areas are getting to be about 15 to 20 years old and need to be rehabbed. The areas in red have been rehabbed in the last 10 to 20 years, yellow 5 to 10 years, and green 0 to 5 years. So we need to go through those blue areas that are getting older, and those red areas where it's been about 20 years. We last did a rehab project to get back to those areas as well. So that $70 million pays for 14 zones, and that keeps us on about a 20-year cycle to come through these neighborhoods and do major rehab. The main project type that we do here is we go through and we replace damaged concrete in the streets and sidewalks and alleys. We do it all at once over about a year and a half time frame, instead of going in and out of your neighborhood every other year going to a different street. So with that, I'll pass it over to Caleb Thornhill to talk about his projects.
All right, thanks, Dan. Get to the next slide. Karen, you got control? Karen, there we go. Oh, we've skipped a few. Can you go back one more? There we go, right there. All right, so there we go. So yeah, Dan mentioned his staff and Public Works will do the rehab. When engineering does a project, typically it'll be a full replacement. So we've got $24 million for street improvements, and that's mainly in residential collector street reconstruction. what you'll typically see with that is a full replacement from a right-of-way to right-of-way. So the picture you see there is a project that we're wrapping up or recently completed. The sidewalk's been replaced, the street's been replaced. Typically, we'll also include drainage, water, sewer, depending on the condition of the utilities under the ground. But this will be a full replacement of the infrastructure in the area. So next slide. Same with the screening wall. Dan's group will do rehab of screening wall, replace panels, replace bricks, depending on the condition. But once it gets to a condition to where it's falling apart, the structure is not safe. You may have seen some walls leaning or major damage done to a wall. The engineering group will come in and do a full replacement. This is a section we recently replaced on Spring Creek. And again, Dan mentioned the $12 million. That's about 12,000 linear feet, which doesn't sound a lot, but with the piers and the structure that we put in, our goal is to hopefully have it last for upwards of 30 years or more. And so this will be a full replacement of that screening wall. Same with sidewalks. So Dan mentioned that Public Works will work on the sidewalks. They'll do trip hazards, panel replacements of sidewalks, but engineering will typically do a full replacement. Or what we see more often than not is where we have gaps, where property may have developed prior to a sidewalk being required. And so the engineering group will come in there and do a full sidewalk addition or fill in those voids in a location that is needed. Excuse me. Street improvements. Another one is intersection improvements. It's probably our most challenging project. You'll see the pictures there. The top right is the addition of a right turn lane, and the lower picture is the Preston and Plano Parkway intersection improvement. These, like I said, are usually two reasons we're doing these. One is for capacity, to try to move more traffic through the area, less idling of vehicles. And the other reason we do these would be from a safety perspective. If there's a high accident location, there's adjustments or changes that we can do. But again, they usually involve the addition of right turns or left turns to add for that safety or that congestion. I mentioned the picture down below. We're also doing improvements at Preston Pgbt right now, if you've been through that area, and that's going to be adding capacity to that. But these are our most challenging. They are typically on the larger arterial intersections and involve some sort of right-of-way or easement acquisition, as well as utility relocations, which become a huge challenge for us. So next slide. Alley reconstruction. Dan's group will go in and do some panel replacements, but once the alley gets to a condition to where it needs to be replaced, engineering will come in. The alleys take a beating from trash trucks and vehicles on them, and so we'll do a full replacement of the alley, and we've got approximately $4 million to do that over the next 4 years. The last item is traffic improvements. There's two items or two categories really for traffic improvements. You see on this slide, traffic technology and traffic safety. I'll touch on each. The traffic technology component, the two pictures you see there, the lower picture is a traffic signal cabinet, and really that's the brain of an intersection. It's got all the equipment that controls the lights when they turn red, when they turn yellow, green. It's also got a lot of other equipment that we use for determine if the signal is functioning properly. The top picture, you'll see right in the middle of the arm extending over traffic, you'll see kind of a white bulb or like it's an orb. That's a vehicle detection camera. It doesn't do any recording. It senses if there's a vehicle there, and it tells the system when the lights may need to turn. We are due for a major upgrade or replacement of those detection cameras throughout the city, as well as, again, I mentioned the cabinet in the lower picture, a replacement of those. Those cabinets are very old. They don't have the size or the capability to hold the equipment that we need. So we're looking to do a replacement of that. And then the traffic safety improvements, These will be usually at intersections, providing additional markings for the median noses, so vehicles can see them better, they don't hit them. Excuse me. Also adding accessible paths at each of our intersections. Some of the intersections don't have the proper pedestrian signals in place, or some of them are just missing them completely. And then the last item under traffic safety would be neighborhood traffic calming. This is a call that we get quite a bit about slowing down traffic in residential areas. And so this would be included with that traffic safety improvement. Next slide. And with that, I will turn it over to Director of Parks, Mr. Ron Smith.
Thank you, Caleb. Good morning, everybody. My name is Ron Smith, Parks and Recreation Director. I'm joined on the call with Renee Jordan. She's our Park Planning Manager. We will review Proposition B for Parks and Recreation, totaling $81.9 million. This is just an overview list right here. We'll go over each one of these projects individually. Karen, if you'd go to the next slide, please. Our first item is community parks renovation. This is to renovate all of the community parks that you see on this list are potential sites. This project or this item is to renovate all community parks on the list that we're considering that are 20 years old or older. So similar to our traffic and engineering department, our Proposition B for Parks and Recreation is focusing on maintaining and renovating our existing infrastructure. There are a few items on this list that are new. Most of them are renovating or repairing and replacing existing infrastructure. This item is for selected community parks that are 20 years old or older. Next slide. Similar to the previous item, this is for neighborhood park renovation. Existing parks that we're considering that are 20 years old or older. Next slide. Trail replacement. This again focusing on trail that is some 30 years old. This is not new trail. This is trail that's already on the ground that is in use, and this would be the replacement of sections of trail. You can see on the map some identified locations that we're focusing on replacing that existing trail. Next slide. Park improvements. This is an item that we would consider new, not a new park, but new items or amenities that need to go in at existing parks. There are times when during the development process that we might miss something, or maybe the community after using the park for some years might let us know that we need to add a drinking fountain or a couple more picnic tables or benches, maybe some improved lighting. This item would allow us to address those needs as an as-needed basis, and it helps us keep all of our parks in tip-top shape. Next slide. This is recreation trails. This also is new. So this does not include any trail that's already on the ground and that our public is using. This would be sections of new trail that are previously identified on our trail master plan and would allow us to continue expanding and developing into a full usage our trail system. Next slide. This is the replacement of an existing maintenance shop that is currently located at Shell Park, east of Highway 75. The picture that you're looking at here is not the Shell shop. This is a new facility that was opened recently at Infield Park. This houses our athletics division for our maintenance crews. What this item, though, would be replacing Shell maintenance shop that is over 40 years old, that does not accommodate the growth of our staff and the growth of our park system. So this item would allow us to build a new shop at a location other than Shell Park that would allow us to accommodate and fit all of our personnel that maintain all of our parks east of Highway 75. Next item. A park restroom replacement. We've identified two locations. These restrooms are old and they do not meet the needs of these two locations at High Point and Infield Park. The parks are capable of facilitating a certain number of athletic events and activities, and the restrooms that we're looking to replace are too small to meet the needs of the park. Also, when we replace the existing restrooms, we will make sure that they are equipped so that they can remain open year-round. Currently, some of our restrooms at these locations have to be closed during the winter months, which is a significant loss of service. So we're looking forward to replacing these restrooms that we've identified on the map here. Irrigation renovation. Got several linear feet of irrigation that is old and underperforming that needs to be replaced. We've got several locations that we've identified where the systems are old and underperforming, and this item would allow us to go in and do a wholesale replacement of those aging and poor performing irrigation systems. This athletic field improvements, similar to the parks improvement item that we discussed, this is specific for new or additional amenities at our athletic sites. So we have 16 athletic sites that we maintain in the city that host hundreds, if not thousands, of activities every year, sports related. This 1.5 item would allow us to make some improvements that the community lets us know need to be put in place, like this picture here of a bleacher pad. Perhaps there's some other locations where we need to add additional capacity. This would allow us to do so. Lighting replacement, two locations that we've identified that need the sports lighting improved and renovated. This would be at Carpenter Park, Field 7 and 8, and at Infield Park South. This would be replacing the sports lighting that is aging out and needs to be replaced. Median renovation. This is certain locations throughout the city, $1.5 million in renovating existing landscaping that is already in our rights of ways and medians. This is the replacement or renovating of the exterior lighting at our Oak Point Recreation Center. This will be replacing with some newer technology like LED, and this would actually generate a small savings to the department of around $3,000. And two facility-related Parks and Recreation projects, the replacement of the roof at the Courtyard Theater and also the replacement of the roof at the Plano Event Center. So that's the total of Proposition B. We also have Proposition C, as in CAT, for Parks and Recreation. This is the renovation of the Tom Mullenbeck Recreation Center. This center is our heaviest used of all of our standalone recreation facilities. This $15.9 million would allow us to stay ahead of the curve. We like to renovate our facilities before or around the 20-year mark. The Tom Mullenbeck Center is currently 14 years old, and by the time, if this is approved and we are able to kick the project off, we'd like to have those renovations done prior to that 20-year mark, since this is such a heavily used facility. Karen, I believe that that's it. We'll now go over to our public safety and facilities. I think, Paul Kunze, you've got this presentation.
Good morning, folks. Paul Kunze, Senior Facilities Construction Coordinator. For Proposition D for the public safety facilities, we got approximately $27 million we're asking for. $9 million of it will be for Station 5, $12 million for Station 8, roughly $4 million for refueling stations, and $2 million for miscellaneous items. Station 5 was built in 1983 and has been renovated once. Our stations see very, very heavy use because they're manned 24/7 and they need constant upkeep. Station 5 is designated as our hazardous material response unit, and right now they have gained so much equipment that they can't fit everything in the station they want. So we're looking at trying to add on another bay for more apparatus, and something happened in 2015 with codes. They added the International Code Council Chapter 500, which requires for any structures that have first responders, medical care, and education to have a storm shelter capable of surviving 250-mile-an-hour winds. Thought being is your first responders could take a direct hit in their storm shelter, survive, and then be able to get back out in the community and assist folks. So Station 5 will have that added as part of this. Station 8 is also aging and has never been renovated, and part of the mission statement has changed there, and they're needing to store more equipment. That also will need to have a storm shelter built in it. If we all remember this weird event that social media created a gas shortage after there was a tropical storm hit Houston and fuel dried up, and then we had what we've all nicknamed Snowmageddon. We've had these two events have made it really hard on refueling the city's first responder fleet. The $4 million that we're asking for here is to build 2 fueling stations, one at the fleet services area and one at a new parks maintenance facility that we're building at the High Point Park area. The other projects that we're asking for here would be a new roof for Station 7 and resurfacing the bay floors in 2 or 3 of our stations. They are getting really slick. They need to be just maintained and resurfaced every so often. And renovating the locker rooms at Station 4 and our police academy. And finally, a 23-year-old elevator that we have at the Justice Center. They need to be renovated every so often. And if we could go to the next slide. Proposition E is for municipal facilities, and what this is we are looking at our city council chambers. City council chambers was being designed before the Americans with Disabilities Act was enacted, and it was built before it was signed into law. As a result, some of our ramps coming up from the bottom floor and into the council chambers and the dais do not meet current codes. Unfortunately, they were poured in place as structural concrete, so they're going to create quite a bit of work to have to break these up and replace them. In addition, we have an aging AV system in there that is also needing to be upgraded for the Americans with Disabilities Act. That system has components that are over 20 years old. So all of that needed, along with really bad acoustics, if I can just say so, we would need to renovate this area and improve all of that. And Proposition F is for the library facilities. The $2.49 million is addressing replacing the asphalt parking lot at the Schimmelfinnig Library. The north windows at Haggard Library, they have had some pretty issues there with the windows are fogging up. Insulated glass sometimes can have problems with their seals that fail, and they're fogged up, and the only way to replace them and to fix them is to replace them. And we'll also be replacing roofs at Parr and Haggard Library, and the existing parking lot lighting at Parr and Haggard and Schimmelfinnig up to new and more modern LEDs in the standard fixture that we use here in our city.
Thank you, Paul. I'll
Thank
go
you,
ahead and
Karen.
finish up here. Just a couple of timeline reminders. Today is the first day of early voting. It lasts through April 27th. At the end of March, 1st of April, we did have a bond pamphlet come out in the Community Impact newspaper to all the citizens. This Thursday, we have a digital town hall meeting regarding the bond referendum. Also in April 7th and April 14th, we published all the election and educational bond video is airing on PTN. And then, of course, May 1st is our election day. At this time, we will take questions. If you have any out there, you can always call me or email me. 972-941-7194 is our phone number, and of course, Karen R. at plano.gov. Christine, I'll turn it back over to y'all.
Well, thank you so much. And one thing I want to be able to say, and I'm remiss for not saying earlier, is that the City of Plano is a valued partner with the Plano business community and is an Inspire level member of the Chamber of Commerce. And yes, this has been a very, very helpful coffee with the city, right? And so, yes, we are encouraging you all to definitely leverage your ability to vote and keep Plano the city of excellence. Christine, let's see if we have any questions. And as we are looking for questions from members of the public, I want to thank Mark, Karen, Daniel, Caleb, Ron, Renee, and Paul. We appreciate your leadership, your attention to the needs of our community, and for joining us this morning.
I guess I have a question. We see one from the audience from Ms. Plonka. Mr. Kunz explained Station 5 gained equipment and needs renovation. From where did the equipment come?
So
Who wants to answer that one?
I can answer it. The equipment isn't gained, it's not being housed inside right now. The Hazmat 5 apparatus is being parked at the station, but they also have another response unit that carries bulk items for cleanup that is currently just sitting outside in the weather. The process that we're thinking here when we add the bay is going to create room for Hazmat 5 and this bulk unit. It's basically a large pickup truck with a trailer. When they do that, that may also create space to build and put an ambulance in this station, which currently it does not have one. So we're not adding apparatus, we're trying to protect the apparatus we do have currently.
Great. All right, we have one more question. Can you share more about how Plano citizens can use Fix-It Plano? Who would like to answer that one?
I'll take a shot at it. I'm Jack Carr. I'm a deputy city manager. There's a lot of different ways that you can get onto Fix-It. One way is the easiest is download it onto your phone. If you do it that way, you can actually take a photo and send that photo of the issue along with your request. You can also log on and go to our website. That's probably the easiest way to find. And throughout our website, there's ways to click on the Fix-It app. It'll ask you for your name and basic information regarding the request, and it's submitted, and it goes and routed to the appropriate department that responds to that request and sends you an update periodically.
Thank you. And then I personally have a question. I know the park by my house is being renovated, and I was just wondering, are we still working on the previous timeline from the last proposition, or has everything been shifted a little bit since the weather and some uncontrollable factors?
Hi, Christine. It's Renee with the Parks Department. Which park do you live nearby?
That's a great question. Which park do I live nearby?
Is it Evans?
Yes.
Evans Park?
Yes, it is.
So Evans Park was identified for renovation in the 19 bond program, and it has just gotten underway, and it should be ready this fall.
Wonderful. Ty, I kick it back to you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Renee, and thank you for all the feedback and all the insight that the leadership of the City of Plano has provided. You all want to encourage you to attend. We have an upcoming bonus public policy committee meeting on this Wednesday, April 21st at 8 a.m. Please join us via Zoom. We are still virtual for this time being. And remember, early voting starts when? Today, right? It starts today. You can vote right now and through Tuesday, April 27th. And yes, Election Day is Saturday, May the 1st. You can find all polling protocols and convenient locations at collincountyvotes.com. And yes, thank you again for joining us. Our meeting is now adjourned.